Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bleached. I am your host, Bomb Voyage, and joining with me today is El Producer, Zachary Leduc. And today is going to be a special episode because we are talking about the music video that we made for Vegas to LA. Zach here had the brilliant idea to befriend me, and then I did everything. So we're just gonna go through the music video and get some insight into the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You could maybe say this is a behind the scenes.
This is a director breakdown. Because I'm the director and I'm gonna have a breakdown.
Oh,
Hopefully.
you already have many a times.
That's part of the process.
Speaking of creative process,
Yeah. Talk a little bit about the origins. The original concept, because I keep buying digicams and I keep not doing anything with them, but they can all shoot like crappy video. And it kind of looks cool. So my original concept was get a bunch of digicams, get a bunch of light stands, put the digicams on there at like different frames, have them all record at once, do a multicam thing of Jacob dancing to one of his songs. That's the music video. Turns out, logistically, for many reasons, that's not as easy as it sounds. A lot of these cameras can only shoot for like 30 seconds. A lot of them are hard to get video off of. And also, you need a space to do that. You need to be able to light that. You need to be able to run all the cameras, and then editing, that's a pain in the ass. So it's a lot more complicated than that. But that was the initial idea.
I feel like it evolved in a good way.
Yeah.
Luckily, I would say the most difficult thing, and if anyone out there is shooting any kind of video or music video or whatever, the most difficult part is finding space to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with Eddie.
And we were lucky enough that where we worked, we had this perfect white backdrop.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna bring up the you can see it pretty good in the opening shot. We have kind of this like whole area here, this backdrop, and there's kind of like a catwalk that you're standing on. So this was originally we were looking for like a warehouse or like an empty, just like something kind of industrial. Was kind of the look we were going for, but it also turns out when you have literally no budget, it's hard to get a location like that.
Even if we had a budget, like just getting a hold of
Oh
people.
yeah, 100%. There was a hardware store that had closed kind of near my house. It was sitting empty. Actually, funnily enough, they're actually putting stuff in. They're putting a bowling alley and a Cal Tire in there. But it had been sitting empty for the longest time. So I looked in, I found like the company that owned it and just sent them an email saying, hey, we want to shoot a music video here, how much would you charge for that? Nothing. Do we have any other leads? I feel like that was...
There was a couple places that we could have reached out to, but they were definite, like you had to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, we had this location and it kind of worked with the concept that we were trying to shoot.
The concept ended up evolving around it, I feel, because my initial thought and plan was kind of a 360, but that was just not possible with the location. And I think this honestly works out a bit better, at least narratively. Makes more sense, is actually kind of more of a story.
After you'd broken everything down to like, okay, we have this location, we have these very broad ideas of like, okay, we want lots of different cameras. Why don't you tell me how it evolved with your storyboarding? And
I'd come up with this concept independent of a song. I came to you and I said, hey, I think this would be a cool music video. Is there any songs that you have that you think would fit this idea? So what made you choose Vegas to LA?
Yeah, I think it was the lone character aspect. It just had to be me going to one location. We didn't need extras. We didn't need anyone else. So having that with the stage and everything we had, it kind of made sense. I think a lot of great shots are the ones where it's a very wide shot of me dancing by myself.
Yeah.
And I think that shows how, quote unquote, lonely I am in those moments. Then the characters kind of derive from the one character. It's very much reminiscent of Johnny Depp's character in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. The concept behind the song in itself was he's trying to return to LA. I don't know if you've seen the film. It's kind of like they arrive in Vegas. There's a bunch of shenanigans, but they are ultimately trying to get back to LA. The whole concept behind the music video in my head to match the lyrics was sort of a Fear and Loathing, going from this place to this place. And then the other character, we wanted a blank slate that we could paste stuff on. And I mean, that kind of goes further with Zach's concepts. So this scene here, this was kind of the original idea behind sort of what Zach wanted to do.
Well, that's kind of what it ended up morphing into. My original idea was a lot of multicam stuff, kind of more reminiscent of this stuff. Also just like cutting between all the different angles and you see all the different cameras. That was the initial concept. It kind of then figuring out the logistics of how to actually shoot that and realizing, okay, it makes more sense if we shoot it like piecemeal and then we can composite things onto you. It kind of morphed into a collage, which incidentally kind of brought it back to the cover art, which I also did for the album, which was one of the initial ideas that you had. This was a whole thing.
We had a bit of because we shot this initial piece that was supposed to be the cover, and I wanted to kind of do almost a collage-esque, like pasting my eyes over where my lips were or my lips on my eyes, kind of just messing up my face. So it's like, that's a person, but that's really weird.
Yeah.
Zach, I would say he's a purist. He really likes just shooting things raw out of camera. And
I wouldn't say that.
in this aspect,
more so, and this is what ended up happening. This is pretty typical of us when we work on a project. My side of it was, when you were trying to tell me that and I was not getting that, but I had also kind of like fallen in love with what we already had. I was kind of at a point where I was like, I think if the more meddling we do, the worse it's going to be. I really liked how it was. Yeah, we ended up just using like a film photo I took. We went to do one. Yeah, we went to do it specifically, but like it was pretty minimal editing from a point and shoot. Here, actually, you got the camera right behind me that I shot it with. Yeah, the little Pentax Zoom 70.
This is the camera that the cover art for Call of the Void was shot with. I'll put it here for now.
That was pretty close to when the album actually dropped.
That was the last piece. I had received all the masters.
Yeah.
Then I was just sort of trying to come up with ideas for the cover. It works. It looks really good. It's just a different concept.
Yeah.
But going back to the video, this sort of idea of pasting eyeballs and mouths, we both came up with very similar ideas at different points.
Yeah, completely independently of each other despite communicating ideas.
Right. And by this point, I mean, I liked this concept. So I think
this was a full year after the album had come out. So a lot of these digital cameras, they have pretty good macro lenses on them. You can get really close up. So that was kind of how another way it morphed was I shot a bunch of close-ups with all the different cameras on like your eyes and your mouth while you were singing. That kind of ended up being the puzzle pieces that make up your face. The wide shot with our nice cinema camera. So it's that juxtaposition of the super clean digital image with the really crusty looking stuff, and then color, make it even more contrasty, add a bunch of saturation to the colors, and then background's black and white.
It was one thing I learned is the scenes that you're creating, they may only last a couple seconds, but the amount
100%.
of time and energy you need to put in to making each scene stick out from all the others, as well as adhere to the story and be true to the idea that they're trying to represent. This shot here, it has all three of those were different takes, all the eyes and the mouth, and then the face behind was also a different take. So that's 4 different takes. Mind you, we probably took a bunch more. We filmed it over one day, which I think was okay. Did we have enough footage you found?
Well, that's the thing. You just never do. The first music video we tried to make, that was one of the big problems. We did like 1 or 2 run-throughs of you dancing in your apartment. We did some story beats that we wanted, but we didn't storyboard it out. So we didn't have an actual plan of when we're going to be on what and how the beats actually go and how the story plays out. We just didn't know how much footage we needed. So the first cut, there's quite a bit of empty space because I don't know what we're going to put here, which was the big problem. So going into this, I knew from the start, we need a solid plan. I need all the story beats, at least of all the lyrics, planned out. So then even if we don't end up using all that, we have that captured. But even then, at the end, there's this whole bit where you're dancing for like a minute.
Vegas to LA, I'd made it intentionally to be the outro of the album.
Yeah, it's the last track.
Just as Lust is the intro. So you'll notice that those 2 songs don't really follow how you would normally break up a song. This one I wanted to have that really long dancing. As it fades out, there's music going on, and there was a lot of dancing at the end, for sure.
So that is quite a bit of time to fill without the story beats of the song. And of course you could still have story beats in here, but in my storyboard it goes to the end of the lyrics and then it's just outro dancing. I knew we need a bunch of footage for that. So we did it probably like 6 or 7 full run-throughs with a bunch of different cameras from different angles, covering you just singing the whole song, dancing the entire time, and doing the dancing on the outro. Plus, I think we did a few just dancing shots. If I were to reshoot it, I would still get more because more is always better. Then you also have the intro, which is also a bit of time because I did not plan as much for that one. A lot of those shots are just the 4 takes of you just standing there getting ready to dance, or just from other parts of the song.
And is this from the High 8?
Yeah, it's an old camcorder from the 90s. I was shooting actually onto the tape, which in hindsight was stupid. Any of the ones where you see the little fuzziness at the bottom, they're the High 8 shots. But it actually died while we were shooting. Like the tape mechanism just stopped working. This one here, you can notice it's a lot more fuzzy than the other ones. This was right before it actually died, so you can kind of see it.
Oh yeah, so that big
this
big black flash that went on. That's when it died.
Yeah, you ended up doing a composite on this.
Very weird, like seeing yourself.
Oh yeah, I got very...
Over and over and over.
What's really fun, actually, I don't know, maybe you can find one of the clips and put it in here, because we did a bunch of stuff where I was just filming like a close-up on your mouth on one of the digicams of you singing, and they don't have the greatest mics, so it just sounds really bad, but I had to listen to it a bunch to sync it up with the actual song. So like anytime I hear the chorus now, I just think of what it sounds like on a crusty digicam, and it kind of ruins the song for me.
What was one of your favorite scenes in the final product?
The whole kind of stretch, this is probably my favorite shot, this clock. This is one of the last shots we got because we didn't get the projector up till the end. I was skeptical of this. In film school, we'd watched this documentary. It was about potato farmers in Russia, I think. And they had a projector projecting old footage of potato farms onto the people as they're talking. Anytime after that, we were brainstorming any ideas. Someone would always say, what if we do it like that? And me and Jacob always found that funny.
I mean, it's hard when you're in film school and you have to come up with an idea to pitch to the class. Everyone just kind of goes to like, oh, what did we see last that was interesting? We had been in a class where we were pitching and a lot of people were pitching, oh, why don't we do an interview and then be projecting something over it? As if we didn't just watch an interview with that exact concept.
It was kind of a joke.
We kind of been joking about it, but then also with this set,
the whole reason for the backdrop is it's a projector screen.
And they're really nice quality projectors.
Yeah, they're like high-end cinema.
So we decided like, oh yeah, well, why don't we just project something on me? And I think the first idea was to something similar to the Cage the Elephant shot. He's walking. I have this treadmill. So we put the treadmill on the stage. I would walk on it and then we would project.
You had wanted the Fear and Loathing bits walking through the desert. So that was our
compromise,
our solution.
Yeah.
The desert stuff, it was like royalty-free drone footage, and I just sped it up and looped it. I tried to not put the looping bits in the final edit, but I'm sure if you look through it, you'll find a bit of it looping. But then the clock, that came about in storyboarding. There's a lot of literal shots in this. I'm not gonna say it's the most groundbreaking piece of art. You're saying time and I show a clock. It gets the job done. I think it looks cool. So this was, again, just royalty-free. I sped it up. If you notice, it looks a little flickery. I added some deflicker. If you look at the raw shot, this was the first projector thing we shot, and I did not consider that I had to synchronize the shutter speed with the projector. In reality, it's just flashing an image however many times a second, and your brain fills in the rest. But the camera is capturing an image however many times a second, and sometimes those don't line up.
I'll lay out a little timeline here.
Yeah.
The song was made, matched up the song with his idea, got the location, figured out a shooting date. Then in the editing process, Zach took it first. I mean, you synced everything up, which, I mean, that must have taken a long time.
The way I did it, I had the song in the timeline, and then every time we were recording, if you're doing anything that needs to be synced, we have the song playing and we have it recording audio, so then we can sync it to that. Here's like a multicam shot. We did a clapperboard for that, so I was able to sync those all up. So I synchronized all that. But then the rest of it, so like if it's an insert of close up on your mouth, by the end I was like really good at doing it just by the waveform. I was really proud of it. The number of times I would just put it in and it wouldn't need any adjustment, but I just grab the section loosely where it need to be, drag it in, and then just like adjust it till it's dead on, and then delete the audio from the camera shot. But that's why I ended up having to listen to it so many times, because I needed to get it dead on. Otherwise, you're out of sync.
We also discovered a lot in the editing process.
Yeah. We had like a pretty good idea going into it with the storyboard of what the major beats of each lyric are, but going between those and getting the little details, that was all came out in the edit.
There's one scene in particular where I say Psycho, which Zach had come with the idea of, I want you to do this Psycho shot, and he had it up on his phone so he could watch. We made it as close to true as we could.
So the Psycho shot, that was, again, no leap of creative genius. It was just, oh, Psycho. What if we do the shot from the movie Psycho? But there's the very iconic shot at the end of Psycho where Patrick Bateman, he like looks up and he has a smile. Really cool shot. So I wanted to recreate that. Initially, the idea was just the original cut. And I don't even know, this ended up getting so messed up in the composite that I don't think we have the base shot anymore. It was originally just black and white, super contrasty with the grain. And then we'd been going back and forth about what you wanted more composited stuff. So one of the things I added in was, originally it was just the blood splatter on the wall. I composited you out and put that behind you, which finding a good blood splatter, pain in the ass.
The long and short of it was, we had this scene. I love this shot, but I thought it stood out so much from everything
it was very
else.
distinct.
I remember I told Zach, like, oh, I want to try these things. So he finished up his edit, gave it to me, and then I went totally bananas and just tried to amplify anything I could.
Yeah, you added a lot of what I like, the VFX shots.
So like this shot, I made, because I found that some of them were, they kind of just, they lingered there. And for me, when I'm looking at myself, I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, next scene. So after I'd done that and I changed a bunch of stuff, what I hadn't noticed was that Zach had used LUTs, which are lookup tables, which is like a preset, like a filter you put on. I had actually gotten these LUTs from a kid in our class, and I think I gave them to Zach, but then I changed the name of the LUTs. So when I was looking at the footage, I was like, something's wrong. Like, this color is all weird. So then I started to like go and do my own thing on his color. Then when I sent him a version just to be like, oh, hey, I did some stuff on this, Zach was like, what did you do?
Yeah, well, I'd done a full color grade of it, and I was on the assumption, again, we've worked together like for a while on like a bunch of different stuff. Communication, I will say, is still sometimes not our strongest point on both of our sides. Because you had said like, oh, I'm going to add in like some transitions about these transition packs. I want to add some effects. I'm like, okay. And then you got busy with like a project for like an actual client. You were working on that. A bit of time passed. I'm like, when is this video coming out? I'll just see the video come out. And then you send me this video with no context. And I'm like, this is not the video that I made. This is, where's all my color?
Totally different.
And so I got really pissy about it. And I sent you a bunch of messages that were a little overreactive. And then we figured it out. But it was
funny because then I was like, oh, that's what that meant. Like I could see on the screen that there was something that wasn't working properly. So I mean, if you could just turn off like the color on one of these shots.
This is with it off.
So that's what's So
this is what you were seeing.
Yeah. So I think like some of the color was normal, but then the LUT wasn't showing at all. When you're working on one project between like multiple computers, between multiple people, between multiple months, because again, we got busy just doing
like our day job,
our normal stuff.
Work for a client.
And I want to give you kudos to following this project through, because obviously it wouldn't have happened without you, and your vision as a whole really shone through. And there's been, especially in that moment, where I was like, yo, I just did a ton of work and all he's just complaining about this color stuff. But a person's true character really shows how passionate you were about the project. And then on my side, I was like, yeah, but this is my thing too. Yeah. And like, I want the best product. So I think we both wanted the best thing. And so I can't understand how people do this on like a large scale. Because
100%.
The two of us, we bash heads a lot. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, the product that we released, super proud of it. And looking forward to making more.
Well, I find that I have this in like the creative partnerships I have in my life. A lot of them are like this. I have a very specific idea of what I want done, and the other person has a very specific idea of what they want done. And we kind of just like bicker about it until it's good. If I send you a thing and I'm like, I think this was really good, and you're like, okay, this is cool, but you should do this, this, and this, and I'll be like, okay, and then begrudgingly kind of do some of it and you'd be like, okay, but that's not, but do this. One of the things was here in this project specifically, you wanted a lot more fast cuts here. The very early versions of this, it's pretty long. We're staying on it for quite a while. It's very little of this multicam stuff. And every time I sent you a cut, you'd be like, great, can we make the ending faster? And I was like, okay, whatever. So I'd like do a few things, but then eventually you were like, we need to make this faster. And so that became the focus. And then, yeah, that was the right option.
It's very hard when editing to see the grand scheme of it because you're very hyper focused on certain scenes. And so for you, it looks normal or it looks quick. And then when you play it back in front of other people, I don't know if you get this when you watch a show or a movie for the first time, like it feels like it goes on for ages. And then you watch it again and you're like, oh, wait, that was really quick. Like what?
Yeah.
Why did that feel so long the first time? I think it must be, I don't know, there's probably some brain science in there. But I find that happens when you're editing. Like you don't really realize the pacing of it until you take a step back or you take a break. And with the way we did it, because Zach had front-loaded a bunch of the work onto himself with the editing, I got a hold of it. And even the first time you watched it after that, it feels totally different.
Well, I think also part of it is this is my first time directing anything. And, we've worked on a bunch of different projects, and it's just you and me who did this. So it's not that big of a dynamic shift, but it's enough where like I'm coming at this from an editor's perspective where I'm not directing in the sense of how to get the best performance. I'm directing as I know I'll probably want to have these inserts, or I'll probably need a bunch of shots of you dancing in this way or from this angle. So coming at it from the sense of the director and the editor, it's taking on a lot of ownership on my end. And so if I'm staring at this for like hours and hours on hours on end, send it off to you and you're just seeing it for 4 minutes, and then you give me no, I'm like, well, no, you don't have all the context of the hours and hours of why I did it this way, but that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the people watching it also don't have that context, so it needs to exist outside of that context. It does not matter the reason you have this shot here is because you searched high and low and you couldn't find something else. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Yeah, it has to stand on its own.
Like that's the hardest part about making anything.
Yeah.
I think with art in general, and I mean editing is an art. Directing is an art. The music itself is an art, and you put a lot of time and energy into certain small aspects.
You have to kill your darlings. That's so huge.
People don't see the small pieces, and I think going forward, it's just going to be more of one of us being like, no, but this thing is really cool, and then the other one is going to just have to crush
That's the thing.
The dreams, and say, thinking of large picture, thinking of the people viewing this, is it really necessary to put in?
I think a perfect example of this is the original cut of this. This is something you added, this like effect. Because I originally, you're talking about like blue eyes. And so your eyes aren't naturally blue. I had to make them blue in post, but this is one of the ones shot on a crusty digital camera, which has very little color depth and very little resolution. So doing the color shift on that was a pain in the ass. And I remember like slaving over this for like a few hours and then finally getting it to a point where I thought, oh, this doesn't look terrible. It's literally, it's barely on screen for like more than 2 seconds. And then when you sent me the cut, it was a different thing. And I'm like, well, that's stupid because I spent all that time on that. But again, if it looks better and it works better, the time spent does not matter. And that is something I've had to learn, especially with this project.
Like you said, like that took you a couple hours. For me, I literally put, I think I was putting in like 8-hour days.
Yeah.
For maybe a week and a half straight of just frame by frame, I would be drawing over the eyeballs.
Oh, is that how you did it?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was painful. You would do it and then it wouldn't be right. Like something would just be off, or the program itself would do something funny, and then like your tracking just gets all thrown off. You're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? But I mean, again, at the end of the day, I promised myself that after the last one we had filmed, and after that wasn't released, I had kind of said, if we're doing this has to be released.
Yeah.
Like I don't care how long it takes, but it's gonna be released. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but I also just don't think that the stuff I do is very good. So I want to be perfect, but I know I'm not. So I get into this weird loop of self-doubt and all this nonsense that comes up, which I'm sure every creative person feels all the time. But when I was editing these and putting in all that time and effort, and I was like, this has to be good. At the end of the day, I exported it and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send it to Zach and he's going to praise me. I'm going to send it to him because I knew I had somewhere to be.
Yeah.
And he had just finished exporting.
Yeah.
I mean, exporting videos takes so long. And with this, oh my God, it took
This is
forever.
behemoth of a project.
But
which is all the color and like layers.
yeah, and so like when I had exported it, I was like, I have to leave my house.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna send it to Zach, and then I'll explain later why I made these decisions. Then when Zach was like, "Yo, you just took what I did and literally erased it, and like, changed it,"
well,
I made it better.
Like out, and so like I sent a message, and then I thought more about it, and then I got more angry, and then I sent a worse message. So I was kind of just riling myself up.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, oh, I have to respond because like I don't want this to get out of hand. And then, but of course you respond early. But communication is the biggest part of any of these projects.
Yeah.
Also, the idea that the project in itself is the main piece. No matter how married you are to an idea, being able to adapt. I only got to certain places, and remember, I only did like a couple scenes of editing. A lot of this was Zach, but the places I got to was because I saw what you had done, and then I was like, I think we could push this further.
Yeah.
I think we could get more out of this thing that you already got. I mean, if you go to the eyeball scene.
Oh, yeah. Oh, see, that's a perfect example of when I actually sat down and rewatched it after, like, we had our little thing, and I was like, actually, that works what I had done. I'll put out my cut on my YouTube channel just so, like, you can take a look at it, and we'll link it here, because this looked completely different in my version.
With Zach's, it was kind of like me in the center, and then...
You're doing the...
And then I was doing, like, a prayer thing, and then you could see, like, little clusters of eyes.
It was on the storyboard, because I remember... Specifically, I was like, this is going to be my director's cameo because one of the eyes is going to be mine.
One of those eyes is yours. I don't know if you can...
I cannot make it out at all.
Yours is the top left corner in the center.
Oh, yeah, that is me. I see that now.
Yeah. But it was kind of sparse. Like it was like little clusters here and there. And then I just started pushing it as far as I could.
Yeah.
This is such a cool idea. I just think we need more. And then I had filled the frame with these eyes. And I mean, my computer was chugging along.
See, that's why it ended up so much more sparse, mainly because I started putting in the videos and it just started chugging and I'm like, this is not...
I think I had to render out like separate pieces and then composite it together. And I was doing that after the fact that Zach had put a bunch of effort into just getting the eyes into a little cluster.
Yeah.
So it's a very... delicate thing, I think.
I didn't end up doing most of this on my computer at work just because that was what was powerful enough to handle it. But even then, a lot of the stuff I couldn't play back at anywhere close to real speed with all the compositing, which definitely makes it a lot harder to do all these kinds of things.
Let me ask you, what do you think you can take from this experience? Maybe in like as a director and then maybe as like an editor.
Yeah, not to sound too cheesy, but this was one of the biggest learning experiences for me in terms of a video production that I've ever done. I learned so much. Directing, like, you know, I had to go through and like I'd listen to the song and I was like, okay, in my mind, before I have anything on paper, how do I picture this? And then, you know, making the shot list, making the storyboards, talking to you, like figuring out the story, then, you know, coming up with, okay, this is what we need to do, this is how we're going to do it. Especially with such a logistically complicated thing of we have to do a bunch of shots with a bunch of different cameras. I have to keep track of everything and figure out what we've captured, what we need to capture, how we've captured it, where it all is, bringing that all in. Honestly, I think that ended up working out really well. Then taking that and then going forward and being willing to, I've had my vision, you know, I've put in my work, but this is a team project and I need to then allow the team, being you, to then take control of aspects of it. Because my originally I wanted everything to be super clean, locked off, like no movement, kind of clinical. And then slowly and surely you got it out of me to add more movement and add more effects and stuff, which ended up being the right call. So then I think not just locking myself into what I can do and what I feel comfortable doing in my editing style, because you are, I would say you like to dabble around with those kind of effects a lot more than I do. So that's like bringing you in from the start to have those talks and have those ideas instead of waiting till the end to send it off to you.
Yeah, I definitely, from my side, for me, I just need to communicate ideas a bit better, because when I was telling you, hey, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And then you were like, yeah, I did it. Do you not see what I did? And because I'm overseeing something that's not, other than the song and the fact that I'm on the screen, it wasn't really mine. Like, you were the director, you had the idea, you had done the storyboards, and you were editing it. So it was like, this is all in your brain, and you're able to put it on the screen. Whereas for me, coming to you, all I can do is give you notes.
Yeah.
So finding a better way for me to communicate that, I think, would be the next step into that. And then also, rather than just doing it, even though when someone tells me no, I'd rather just kind of do it on my own than like go and ask for permission. But I think that seeing how it kind of played out this time, I'm going to come to you at the beginning and say, hey, look. And now that we have a nice example of it, I think it's going to make it easier in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
And just to wrap this up, I just want to say thank you so much for all your hard work, Zach. Like, this has been a dream video, and I'm like super stoked to work on another one. And I really have a feeling it's going to go a lot smoother
100%.
because we've worked, like, this is a project that just the two of us worked on. So at the end of the day, it bonded our styles and us as creatives. Yeah, I'm going to throw in the link to the director's cut in the bio. If you as an audience could go and check that out, that would be awesome. Yeah, you'll be seeing more from us later. Would you like to say anything else, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, again, just to wrap it up, like, this has been, truly, it's been such an incredible experience. Like, this was, like, the first time since I've graduated film school that I've worked on, just a creative project of this scale. Like, I've done, little short films with people, smaller scale projects, or I've, like, helped out with people's projects and stuff. And that's been really cool and really fulfilling. But this was, like, from start to finish, our vision and, like, our project, just the two of us. We've worked together so much to finally be able to do something like this and put all this knowledge we've learned to use. And this is influenced by so many things. I can't even begin to tell you most of the influences, but it's such a culmination of so many years of learning and of working together, and to finally have something that I can say, like, yeah, this is the kind of stuff I want to be making. In an ideal world, if money's no object, this is the art that I'd like to produce. Anytime I look at a project that I've worked on, that I've shot, edited, whatever, the only thing I ever see, you can see like a little, looks weird, or that cut doesn't work, or like you can tell there's warp stabilization on that shot. And this is one of the few projects I look at and I can just watch it and not nitpick everything. And I think that really speaks to the amount of time and work and thought that went into this. It wasn't just like a quick one and done thing. It was almost, about half a year of work that went into making this, and I think it shows. Next one will not be shot on a million different digital cameras, because that was insane.
It's like, oh, so that's why people don't do this a lot.
Yeah, that's why I've not seen this concept before, because it's the most annoying thing to do. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the next project and to like continuing to build on this foundation that we have now.
Thank you, everyone, if you've stuck around till the end, and we'll catch you next time with another normal episode.
In 6 months.
In 12 years. See ya until next time. This has been a Bleached Podcast with your host, Bomb Voyage, and Zachary Leduc.
Maybe I'll be on camera next time.
Ooh. All right. See ya.